Islam is the product of a very specific family tree, blood relatives, coaches, and friends who basically built his life around fighting long before the UFC ever called his name. Today, he's a two-division UFC champion with a historic winning streak and a spot near the very top of the pound-for-pound ranking. But if you trace his story backwards, every branch of that tree explains why he fights the way he fights, why he carries himself the way he does, and why people around him talk about loyalty before they talk about belts. Let's break down Islam Makhachev's family tree, his parents and brother, his wife and kids, and his second family, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Abdulmanap, and the whole Dagestani fight clan around them. Ramazan and Islam's parents. Islam Makhachev's journey begins in the remote village of Burshi, high up in the rugged mountains of Dagestan. His father, Ramazan, was a man of relentless work ethic. During the day, he drove cars for a living, and in his spare time, he grew tomatoes in his own greenhouse, selling them to local villagers to bring in extra money for the family. Islam's mother worked as a housewife and ran a small cafe, managing the household while helping support the family income. Life in Burshi was far from comfortable, but it was built on principles that would later define Islam as a fighter: discipline, hard work, and sacrifice. What's particularly telling about Islam's relationship with his parents is how it shaped his mentality. Islam himself has spoken about this directly, saying that his father worked harder than he did to make him a champion. That's not just a casual compliment, a real foundation. Starting from age 6 or 7, young Islam would help his father load heavy boxes of vegetables in the greenhouse, doing manual labor that built his work ethic from the ground up. Meanwhile, his mother, despite her concerns about his fighting career, instilled in him the values of discipline and respect. Interestingly, Islam's mother has never actually watched him fight. She can't bring herself to do it, worried about her son's safety. During his fights, she leaves the house for hours, unable to watch. Yet, she's also his biggest motivator in a different way. After Islam won the lightweight title, she approached him and said, "You're champion now. Wrap it up." Khabib listened to his mother. "When will you listen to yours?" That pressure, that constant reminder that he should retire at the top, actually fueled him. It's the kind of family dynamic that either breaks a fighter or makes him unbreakable. For Islam, it made him sharper. The brother who sacrificed everything, Qurban. If there's one person in Islam's family tree whose name is almost too perfect for his role, it's his older brother, Qurban. The name Qurban literally translates to sacrifice in Arabic, and that's exactly what he did for his younger brother. In 2005, when Islam was pursuing combat sambo as a competitor, he was making virtually no money. His family was struggling, and the financial reality of competing in sambo, constantly needing money for travel, training fees, and basic necessities became unbearable. Islam made a decision. He was going to quit. He was going to give up on fighting entirely and find a way to actually make money to help his family. That's when Qurban Ismail stepped in. Instead of letting his brother walk away from his passion, Qurban took on multiple jobs. He worked extra shifts, picked up side gigs, whatever it took to help cover Islam's competition costs and training expenses. This wasn't a short-term arrangement either. Qurban maintained this level of sacrifice through Islam's early sambo career and into his early MMA days. He literally put his own life and career on hold so his brother could pursue his dreams. The respect Islam has for his brother is reflected in his actions today. Now that Islam is a world-class fighter earning millions, Qurban doesn't have to work another day in his life if he doesn't want to. But more importantly, Islam carries his brother's sacrifice with him into every fight. When you understand that someone literally sacrificed years of their life so you could compete, that's a weight that pushes you to be great. The bridge to greatness, meeting Khabib and Abdulmanap. As a kid, Islam lived not far from the Nurmagomedov family in Dagestan. He went to the same school as Khabib and their cousins Abubakar and Umar Nurmagomedov. Around this time, Islam was training in a wushu sanda club, and the kids would play football together, wrestling around, testing each other constantly. It was through these childhood connections that Islam's life took a pivotal turn. When Khabib turned professional and started making waves in fighting, Islam noticed. He saw his childhood friend having success in MMA, training under Khabib's father, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov. Islam, still competing in sambo but realizing that MMA might be the path forward, made a decision. He approached Khabib's father and asked if he could train under him. Abdulmanap didn't just say yes. He took Islam in like a second son. This is crucial to understand. Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov wasn't just a coach, he was a legend. A martial arts coach who understood fighting at a level that very few people on earth possessed. For Islam to gain access to that level of training and mentorship at such a critical point in his development was transformational. More than that, it gave him a father figure in the fight game, someone who believed in him and invested in him the way a parent invests in their child. What's remarkable about Abdulmanap's impact on Islam is how personal it was. Khabib himself said that his father really loved him like his son. He really liked his discipline, focus, his championship mentality, everything. That's not just good coaching, that's family. Abdulmanap didn't see Islam as just another kid to train. He saw potential, character, and the hunger to be great, and he treated him accordingly. Khabib as mentor and brother. Here's what needs to be clear. Islam Makhachev and Khabib Nurmagomedov are not biological brothers. But try telling that to either of them. From their earliest days training together under Abdulmanap, they developed a bond that transcends typical fighter-coach or even teammate relationships. They grew up together, trained together every single day, pushed each other to limits that most fighters will never experience, and built something sacred together. When Khabib retired undefeated from the UFC in 2021, many people thought he'd fade into the background. Instead, he transitioned seamlessly into coaching Islam, and more importantly, into being his closest confidant and advisor. Khabib is in Islam's corner for virtually every major fight. He's not just yelling instructions, he's there as a mentor, an older brother, and someone who understands exactly what Islam is going through because he's been through the exact same journey. The difference is that Khabib's coaching style is a bit more hands-on and direct than his father's was. Where Abdulmanap observed and strategized, Khabib gets involved in the detail. He's very hands-on with Islam's preparation, very direct with his feedback. But that's the evolution of their relationship, Khabib leading where Abdulmanap guided. Shamil Zavurov and the Dagestan Circle. Beyond Khabib, Islam's support system includes the tight circle of fighters he came up with in Dagestan. Shamil Zavurov is one of his closest training partners and childhood friends. These guys trained together as kids, played football together, and pushed each other through the brutal Sambo and MMA training camps that define the Dagestani fighting culture. This isn't a casual group chat situation. These are guys who've literally shaped each other's techniques, tested their strategies, and built their championship mentalities in the same gyms. When Islam goes into a fight, Shamil and others from this circle have been part of the preparation. They know his game inside and out because they've been training with him for decades. Javier Mendez and American Kickboxing Academy. As Islam's career progressed and he started training with Khabib at the American Kickboxing Academy, aka, another crucial figure entered his world, Javier Mendez. Mendez is the head coach at AKA and has trained multiple UFC champions including Khabib, Daniel Cormier, and Cain Velasquez. What makes Mendez's role interesting is that he represents the bridge between Abdulmanap's traditional Dagestani coaching philosophy and modern comprehensive MMA coaching. Mendez has worked with Islam during fight camps alongside Khabib, bringing technical expertise in striking, wrestling, and fight strategy. But more than that, Mendez has been part of creating the family-like atmosphere at AKA that keeps these fighters motivated and sharp. He understood what made Abdulmanap special, the creation of a family environment, and he's tried to replicate that at AKA for fighters like Islam, Khabib, and others coming from the Caucasus region. The quiet private life, wife and daughter. Islam is notoriously private about his personal life, which is unusual for a modern UFC champion. He doesn't post constantly on social media, doesn't share details about his relationship status, and keeps his family largely out of the public eye. What is known is that Islam is married and has a daughter. After winning the UFC lightweight title, he spoke about how the thought of his daughter kept him motivated during the fight, pushing him to be stronger and better. His private nature, his reluctance to expose his family to the circus of MMA fame, actually reflects something valuable about his character. It shows that despite becoming one of the biggest stars in the sport, he hasn't forgotten where he came from or the importance of keeping certain things sacred. The security guard who believed. During his early professional career while studying physical education at Dagestan State University, Islam worked as a security guard to make ends meet. Here's the beautiful part. His employer believed in Islam so much that he allowed him to train during work shifts. More than that, he paid Islam's salary even when he was away competing or at training camps. That kind of belief from someone outside your immediate circle, someone just trying to make a living themselves, speaks volumes about Islam's character and the respect he earned from those around him. A family tree built on sacrifice. When you look at Islam Makhachev's family tree, you don't see a collection of famous names or powerful connections. You see regular people, a driver who grew tomatoes, a woman who ran a cafe, a brother who worked multiple jobs, a childhood friend turned mentor, and a legendary coach who treated him like a son. You see people who had very little but believed in Islam so completely that they gave him everything they had. That's what separates Islam from fighters who are simply talented. Talent is just genetics and some training. What Islam has is a foundation built by people who refused to let him quit, who sacrificed their own comfort so he could chase his dreams, and who continue to stand by him as he writes his legacy in the UFC.